Good day, LHMS116, English Language Arts, 8th grade. Thanks for joining me here. Today is Monday, March 1st. Welcome to March. We're getting closer to spring, which can only mean one thing. I'll be planting my garden and my grapes. Today we're going to look at the final piece of the puzzle. Last week we looked at body paragraphs, and then also last week we looked at the introduction. Today, you guessed it, looking at the conclusion. This is our final paragraph that was supposed to be a star. This is our final paragraph, and it kind of has a bow on everything. It's an important piece to the puzzle, and we want to make sure that we get it right. And as mentioned, the conclusion is what we're going to look at. And if you're paying attention, you'll recall that the body paragraphs all had a flow or a pattern. Well, and most recently, and as a matter of fact, we looked at the intro last week, and it too had a flow or a pattern. And so it should be no surprise that the conclusion also has a flow or a layout as well. Mr. Neiman, that is not surprising. However, what is the pattern? Well, I'm so glad you asked. Allow me to state this. The first sentence in your body paragraph should be your topic sentence. That's absolutely correct. That is what the entire paragraph is about. So if you tell me that first the dog, I know that entire sentence or that paragraph is going to be about a dog. In the same way, your third sentence of your body paragraph should be the quoted text or the cited textual evidence. Very, very important. Now consider it the last sentence of your introduction paragraph. When you get to your introduction paragraph, the very last sentence, that is the topic sentence. That's your thesis. That's your main idea of the entire paper. Very, very important that you understand what that is. So as we look at the conclusion paragraph, we have to keep in mind that these paragraphs had a system, so will the conclusion. And I'll write them up here. Relax. In the same way that they have that, the first word or phrase of the conclusion is going to signify that it is the conclusion. And if you opened up your Google Classroom file that I provided concerning the conclusion, you will see that there are a handful of words and phrases that deal with the conclusion. These are called transitional words or phrases. Transitional words or phrases. You might have heard something like, in the end. ... That's a transitional word or phrase. That's signifying the end. Or you may have heard this. To conclude. That too is another version. You may have also heard all in all. Or the easiest one that's out there, finally, maybe, in conclusion. All these signify that you're wrapping up your essay. All of these signify that you are in the conclusion paragraph. And that's very, very important. So we're going to work through this. And I'm going to use I used on the introduction paragraph, I used the tennis ball and the basketball as an example. And I'm going to use that again. So after providing one of these, whichever one you want to choose, this one, I'll say to conclude. Actually, I actually like one word, ultimately. That's my jam right there. Love that one. So if I use my tennis ball and basketball statements essay that I was writing, I might say something like, ultimately, the similarities and differences between the tennis ball and basketball are clear. So what you're in effect doing is using a transitional word or phrase to set off the fact that you're writing your conclusion paragraph to let the reader know, hey, this is it. This is the final punch. And then all you're going to do after you provide this transitional word or phrase, you're going to restate your thesis. And if you're not sure what your thesis is, just go up to the last sentence of the first paragraph. That's great. So again, ultimately, the similarities and differences between the tennis ball and the basketball are quite clear. There is your first sentence of your last paragraph. Now, the second and third sentences simply restate a similarity and a difference. So your second sentence will state a similarity. Your third sentence will state a difference, and it'll sound like this. So if we go back to that introduction sentence, you might hear something like, ultimately, the similarities and differences of a tennis ball and a basketball are quite clear. Then it would say, similarity, both are round and utilized in sports. However, transitional word, by the way, they differ in size and material. So, one thing that they both have in common is that they're round and they're utilized in sports. However, here comes a difference. They differ in size and the material that they're made of is different. So boom, I just crushed my first sentence of my conclusion, starting with a transitional word or phrase and then restating my thesis. And then my second and third sentences are just listing a difference and listing a similarity, or listing a similarity and then a difference. But guess what? The very last sentence of it all, you want to challenge the reader or like leave them pondering or leave them wondering, leave them thinking, to where if they're reading your essay, this is me reading your essay, and I get to that last sentence, I would do something like this. Make them think, make them wonder. You don't have to necessarily challenge them. And remember, we want to avoid using you. Okay, so it might sound like something like this. If I go back up to my transitional word or phrase from the very start, it would sound something like this. Ultimately, the similarities and differences between the tennis ball and a basketball are quite clear. Both are round and utilized in sports. However, they differ in size and material. Here comes my last sentence in which I want to challenge the reader. Consider the previous thoughts the next time a game of tennis or even basketball should arise. Boom! You have now completed your essay. And guess what? Now it's your turn. Please use the topic cats and dogs. We are right now writing our conclusion paragraph on cats and dogs. And what I've provided for you in that Google Classroom file is not a challenge necessarily, but a help. Go back and read your introduction paragraph. Stop. Then continue to your body paragraph 1, body paragraph 2, body paragraph 3. Stop. Then begin to write your conclusion, knowing first that you have to start with a transitional word or phrase, then restate your thesis, then provide a similarity and then a difference, or a similarity and a difference. And then lastly, you'll want to challenge the reader. If you can finish with all that today in our class setting, then you've done a fantastic job. Wonderful work. If you weren't able to finish with that, come back Tuesday, be ready to finish it all. Okay? Because Wednesday, you're going to get a brand new blank sheet of paper, and I'm going to ask you to basically copy and paste your introduction paragraph, your body paragraphs, and then your conclusion. And then you will have a complete essay, and that will be worth points, something we've worked through. And that's when the fun starts, because Thursday when we show up, here's a brand new set of things you can compare and contrast. You may begin. And that's pretty much it. If you haven't figured it out, I'm out today. And so I won't have office hours, but and I won't be able to respond to my emails today. But I'll be back on Tuesday and we'll work through it. That's why this conclusion is not due till tomorrow night. Okay? But don't just sit there like a bump on a log. Really try to work on this. Okay? And I think that's it. I'll see you Tuesday. Be rock stars. Bye.